This podcast contains explicit language.
Bafangu!
This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by the Incom Corporation, makers of the T-65 Starfighter and now the T-70 Starfighter. The more we make, the faster we're free.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, thesoniashow.com, and Amalgamated Storytelling, this is the Dorking Out Show, the podcast for people who love stories from movies, TV, books, podcasts, and everywhere else.
Welcome to episode 93 of Dorking Out, our weekly status check of Star Trek Discovery. This is the Vaulting Ambition edition, episode 12. Returning today to talk about Star Trek Discovery is my favorite living critic, Jeff Bond. You know him from all the previous... it would be kind of interesting to talk to anybody in the audience who doesn't know who Jeff is at this point and has decided to jump into our Star Trek coverage at episode 12. But I'm sure there's a couple out there. So anyway, Jeff Bond, author of many books, including The Music of Star Trek, The Art of Star Trek, The Kelvin Timeline, as well as a book on Seth MacFarlane's, the official book. Is it the official book? It is the official book, isn't it?
It is, yes.
On Seth MacFarlane's The Orville. So, Jeff, I want to talk to you about episode 12, Vaulting Ambition. I have a feeling, with HBO shows, especially the slow burn HBO shows, I've noticed this with Game of Thrones a couple times, which is they'll have a couple episodes at the beginning of the year with some kind of cool stuff. Then there'll be a lot of table setting and plot setup. And usually within those episodes, things are kind of boring. Like a little bit of this happens, a little bit of that happens. The story inches forward a little bit, and it almost seems like it's not moving enough for an hour of television. And then once all the pieces on the board are set, the last 2 or 3 episodes take off like a rocket, and they are spectacular fun that you can't have if you're just setting up a story, telling it, and then paying it off all within one episode. Vaulting Ambition for me felt a little bit like table setting and chess piece moving without really getting anywhere super satisfying. There were some cool revelations. And at this point, I should probably mention, at least tangentially. Well, actually, let me before I mention that, what are your thoughts on Vaulting Ambition?
Oh, I very much agree with where you're going. That it sort of was spinning its wheels, and there's some cool stuff for sure in it. But there's one big revelation. That I think, like the previous revelation about Voq and Ash Tyler, it has to an extent been telegraphed, and it's not necessarily the fault of the show. And I think there's a whole other discussion to be had in another venue, hint, hint, about this. But I think the whole revelation about Lorca makes a lot of sense, and it has some interesting ramifications in a way, I think, for other characters and other things that we've seen happen on the show. But it's something that, at least from my perspective, from being on Facebook and reading a couple of reviews, like from the moment the show came on the air, it seemed like the idea that Lorca came from the mirror universe was discussed from like the minute the show started, the minute the guy appeared. It was like, what's going on with this guy? He must be from the mirror universe.
Right.
Having this revelation happen, and we both had kind of big revelations, obviously about Tyler and now this character, and they both suffer from that same kind of telegraphing feel. But there was, I think, more interesting things going on even as obvious as the whole Tyler thing was, the idea of him confronting himself in the mirror universe in this completely different, physical guise was a really interesting idea, and that like psychological impact on his character of, seeing himself. It all made sense within what his character was about, which is, the Klingon character, at least, the whole idea of racial purity, and him seeing himself and what his position was in the mirror universe. It's actually pretty rich, no matter what you think about how well the whole revelation was handled. There's quite a lot to talk about in terms of that character and what it's going to be going forward. And with Lorca, at least the way the actual revelation was handled, I'm not sure I got a huge amount out of that, other than like, oh yeah, I guess he is from the mirror universe.
Right.
I like the idea, and I think that it's something that also had been discussed in the past few weeks once they got into the mirror universe. The idea that Lorca was, maybe had some kind of plot involving the Emperor. I think is interesting, and it's clear that Lorca has taken some specific mysterious steps, like stranding the ship in the mirror universe, and other things that shows that he has an agenda and a plan.
Right.
And the fact that he seems does things that are unpredictable and don't make sense within the kind of our Star Trek universe is consistent and feeds into that. But at the same time, it did. I think the revelation fell a little flat.
I felt that it did. And actually, let me take this moment to do something I probably should have done at the beginning of the episode, which is take the Google top-level description of the show. Burnham heads to the ISS Charon with a gift for the Emperor, Lorca. With the help of an unexpected source, Stamets gains clarity. While trapped inside the mycelial network, Saru asks L'Rell for help. So, yeah, a lot of, Stamets' story went a little bit further. Saru's story went a little bit further. It didn't really begin. It didn't really end. We had the discovery about Lorca, and I guess we'll see where that goes. It could, I am wondering, actually, this brings me to something that I wanted to ask you. So it seems as though, tell me if what you think of my theory, that the writers they set all these pieces up, they got all the pieces moving, they got to this episode, and then kind of wrote themselves into a corner. One of the things about Breaking Bad is that, a lot of people talk about how Breaking Bad was so masterful in the way it planned everything out. But, what we've known from the creators and the other writers since that show's gone off the air is that they would set themselves these very difficult tasks, these very difficult traps. And then as they wrote the season, they would figure out clever ways for it all to connect up. The most famous example is the machine gun at the beginning of season 5, the first episode of the flash forward in season 5, which is, what's he going to do with that? Where they go? They must have some crazy plan. They must have known what the end of the season was going to be in the first shot of the first episode of season 5 because they set it all up beautifully. No, they just put it in there because it'd be cool. It would grab some attention, and they figured it out later. Why am I saying this now? Because it seems as though they had this cool idea where Burnham was going to confront Giorgio. Giorgio is the emperor of the Terran Empire. Giorgio decides, you know what? I'm going to kill this Michael Burnham. She's, I'm suspicious. She might be working with Lorca. She might not be. I'm going to kill her. And then all they could think of was to have Michael just spill the beans. Stop, don't kill me. We're from a mirror universe. Please help us get out of here.
Right.
And
Well, now I have to say I actually like that because I have to say it's the most unexpected thing that you could do, because all the
That's
Mirror
true.
Universe episodes going back to the original series, the Deep Space Nine ones, the Enterprise ones, the plot of every episode ever done in the Mirror Universe is we've got to lie through the whole episode, and please don't let them find out that we're from, the regular universe.
Right.
And that is a surefire it's a guaranteed suspense device that works every time, because when you have someone who has to lie, we've all had to lie in our lives, and we know that it's just agonizing suspense, that you're afraid you're going to be found out at some point.
Right.
So to have her just say, "Hey, I'm from I'm from this other universe," is the most unexpected tactic that you could possibly use, and it makes a certain amount of sense that even this brutal, dictator, when confronted with that, given that obviously a huge amount of their technology was built on the Defiant and this technology from another universe,
Right, from the Federation.
She would see that as an opportunity. Having said all that, the way that it was done, and the way a lot of this episode and the scenes between Burnham and Giorgio were done, I didn't think had the kind of juiciness that you would have wanted from this big confrontation. And I do feel I love Sonequa Martin Green. I've loved her work, across this series, and I think she's doing everything she can. But it seems like I think she's been strong in the previous episodes. It's this one. It seemed like she couldn't quite figure out how to play a lot of this.
Right.
And so I wasn't feeling the dynamic between her and Giorgio, I think, the way the show wanted us to.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, because the dynamic that I felt was she's like, all right, I'm dead anyway, I'm just going to spill the beans. And then the Emperor is kind of like, oh, yeah, I'll help you out. It's almost like where you hear where you see the young naive kid kind of tell a stranger, "My dad has a safe." Oh, really? Wow. All right. Tell me where does he keep it? He keeps it in his den.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is almost like, hey, by the way, we're here from this new universe. We've got this badass new ship. I'm sure if you torture me for 5 minutes, I'll tell you where it is, or whatever. And then it's so. I'm not exactly sure where they're going. I don't want to. I've become mature enough in my old age to see that just because I don't know where a story's going doesn't mean it's somehow not doing things correctly. I was pretty underwhelmed with this episode, and I think this is a little bit of a drawback of this hyper serialized format, and to see it in Star Trek just. I don't want to say bums me out or whatever, but it was just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, here's an episode I'm never going to rewatch. I mean, even that was the thing about previous Star Treks is you got the best episodes, you got the worst episodes, and then you got the ones that are just kind of in the middle and forgettable. But even those, after a while, because they're self-contained and whatever, you can find some little charm in revisiting them, maybe. Mm-hmm. Here, it's just, well, here are all the plot threads that we have already going. We're all moving them forward 5 feet. And then now here are all the plot threads that you're going to see going in the next episode. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
See you later.
Rewatch. Yeah, definitely the rewatch factor. And I think that does apply, to other, like you're talking about, there's certainly Game of Thrones episodes. You're probably not going to go back and rewatch, and it's a kind of an Achilles heel of serialized television. Because if you're going to watch, you're going to binge watch a whole show, and then maybe you're going to leave it for years and say, oh, I want to rewatch all of that because it had such an incredible story.
Right.
So if you don't wind up having an incredible story, that's kind of a problem.
Yes.
And obviously, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the upcoming episodes. But yeah, after building up all this momentum of getting into the mirror universe, this episode does seem like kind of a stumble.
And didn't they, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they going to have 10 episodes originally, and they expanded it?
Yeah, it's up to, I think it's 15. So where are we now? This is 12?
This is 12, so there's 3 more.
Yeah, there's 3 more. I thought that I'd heard it's supposed to be over at the end of January. And so, I mean, that would be around then. Maybe it goes.
Yeah, I think there's 2 that play in February.
Okay.
Just because of the way it breaks out. But yeah, well, let me ask you this then, because for all of the Alexandra August fans in the audience listening, she will be joining us next time. I'm a little bummed that we don't have her now, because last night on Twitter, I bestowed the name of Star Trek Nostradamus on her, because sweet Christmas, between last week and this week, she has predicted everything. Like, part of me is wondering if pop culture is as fun for her as it is for me, because she seems to be able to see things weeks out. And I'm wondering, is there any suspense in this show? Is it just kind of 15 episodes of validation for her predicting ability? What is going on?
I think that she actually did post about something about this, because she she did a whole article, I think, about how much she enjoyed the kind of way that the Ash Tyler plotline was presented and worked out, even though she did sort of see what was coming. And I think it's probably related to what I talked to earlier, that just that there's a kind of a richness to what's going on with that character, those characters, that sort of wasn't there in the Lorca revelation. And she said, basically just put some short posts online saying how that she appreciated the way the Tyler thing had been going, but even though she's enjoying the show, she said she felt the whole Lorca revelation really fell flat for her, and she's probably enjoying this more than we are. So I see her perspective. Like I said, I pretty much agree with it, and the thing is that I probably was more excited about the actor, who plays Lorca being on this show than I was about anything.
Right.
When I started to watch Discovery, and I'm not sure how well he's being used. And clearly, he was hired because he's played some great villains, and he's capable of playing, that kind of a character very, very well. So the fact that he was on the show, that he was cast, was a big indicator that the character might wind up being a villain.
Right.
But I am very interested in seeing what that is going to mean for the series going forward. Is he going to be on the show next season? Is this, is his hiring temporary, and he was basically hired to play out this one story arc?
Right.
And who's going to be captain of the? I don't see them promoting Burnham to captain of the Discovery after at the wrap up of season 1,
right?
Although maybe that's going to happen. I have not predicted that element of the show.
It would be interesting for Saru to stay as captain and have that dynamic.
And I really enjoyed his scenes in this, and I felt like every time I see Saru, I feel like I am very confidently in the hands of a strong, comprehensible Star Trek character, a character that I kind of understand. And I've watching just the way those scenes with him were written and edited seemed much more self-assured. And it might have been just because of Doug Jones' performance, and the way that he kind of picks his lines apart and emphasizes things. You never feel any confusion about what you're supposed to be getting out of those scenes. And I could, but again, I don't see Doug Jones as such a thankless performer in a way. His fate has always been to be the guy under a bunch of makeup and playing a supporting character. So right. I don't see it being Star Trek Discovery starring Doug Jones as Saru. I mean, obviously, Burnham is the lead of the show and is going to continue to be. And you could put another character in command, but I don't see it being Saru. That would be an interesting choice. But right. My guess is either they're going to find some way of having, and I don't know whether we've really established for certain that the normal universe Lorca is dead, and so that we would basically have to have either put the mirror universe Lorca in, have him wind up in the normal universe, sort of somehow rehabilitated, and say, well, this guy was troubled, but he came through for us, and somehow we're going to work with them, or you're going to find the real Lorca and bring him back. I mean, if you saw the trailer for next week's episode, we know that Landry is going to come back, and I'm assuming we're seeing the real universe Landry, and that's actually something that they did very well, and that also kind of papers over that character's dumb death, because if she's a mirror universe character, it explains her being a much more of a hostile, knee-jerk, yeah. I mean, that's I still think that could have been done way, way better dramatically, but it's not as outright dumb.
Right.
Because there's a little bit of something to explain it. And obviously, they did plan for this, because it does explain that first scene between Landry and Lorca, where they're sort of talking, about how they've been through a lot together, and they're, obviously have some big secret between them, and it's that they're from the mirror universe. So I did like that. But I have no idea how they're going to kind of deal with having Lorca on the show or not having him on the show at the end of this season.
Well, I almost suspect, because I think this is the template or the model for a lot of these shorter, tighter prestige shows, where you have your regular cast and then you have a budget to bring someone in that, Fargo is built on this. Other shows where they say, you know what, we're not going to lock down this big movie star for an entire series. We're going to lock them down for 10 episodes. They're going to come in, they're going to be this, do their spectacular stuff, and then they'll be killed or written out or something. I mean, I think we had people watching how Star Trek Discovery developed, anticipatorily thought, all right, so we got Giorgio, we got Lorca, both played by these huge stars. I'm kind of feeling like, obviously Giorgio's story is going to be told by the end of this season. I think it seems pretty obvious that Lorca's story will probably be concluded by the end of this season. And then season 2, I mean, it seems, and I think, haven't the current showrunners essentially said season 2 is a much more traditional, much more recognizable bridge to
that they,
Star Trek
yeah,
that we
I don't know. I haven't read every interview, with them regarding that, but they have definitely said that you're going to see more Star Trek-like things in the second season. I don't know that they've talked about it, as a whole being more like a regular Star Trek show. But that's a good question. What is it going to be? And obviously we've got a few more episodes to see like what the end game of this season is going to be, but it's clear that it can't just go back to what it was, when we first got on the Discovery, because that's all been shaken up too much.
Which I do have to say, I'm a little bit saddened or bummed out or whatever, because I like the idea of kind of like a Special Forces, very elite Federation ship, Section 31 ship that goes around and does like the secret, crazier missions. Where it's not all about diplomacy, but you could have diplomacy in there. It's not all about, I don't know. I just thought that was a very potentially interesting idea for a show that I guess we're never going to see at this point. So, what were you going to say?
No, I guess I was just going to say that I like some of the other, standalone stories that they did, and sort of maybe along that vein. So,
right. So, what do you think? What do you see looking forward? Is there anything else you'd like to say about episode 12, Vaulting Ambition? Any other final thoughts as we close this out?
I guess we didn't really talk about the Stamets story, and that again, that doesn't really sort of go anywhere, so there's not a lot to discuss. But I like the fact that he says, when he's walking around with the mirror Stamets, like, "Am I dead? Is this the afterlife?" I thought that was there was some interesting kind of theological discussion there.
There is a God, and she's very mad at you.
Yeah. I mean, there's some fun stuff in that. I wish that something we've kind of complained about before is that I wish there was a little bit more of an infrastructure in terms of characters. Like, who's this doctor? That's one great thing that they were able to do on the original show. There's Dr. McCoy was the doctor, but they had a guy named Dr. Mabenga, who was a really terrific black actor who appeared in like 2 or 3 episodes, and when McCoy was off the ship. And this guy registered very strongly. I mean, he could have easily, I think, been the doctor on the show if DeForest Kelley had left. And that you had Nurse Chapel, and there was an infrastructure of supporting characters that were familiar to you, and that's one thing that Discovery so far has sort of completely avoided doing, except for some sort of background faces. Even again in this episode, we had the redheaded woman was on the Shinzu and is on the Discovery now, and who we see from time to time, who basically has had almost no lines throughout the series, and then wound up being number one, the first officer on the Shinzu. And I'm assuming maybe she'll have something to do in the next episode, but she's more or less forgotten in this episode. You don't even see her. So I wish they would do a better job of kind of building, supporting characters because then you can pay that off. And if one of those people dies, it's actually shocking as opposed to just being like a throwaway death. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jeff, I think we've said pretty much all that needs to be said about what I think we both agree is kind of a middling episode. Not awful, not train wreck, definitely, but a little underwhelming because we are so precious. We need to be overwhelmed and pleased at all points for all shows. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Oh, hold on. Stop. Are there any announcements that you would like to make in a certain podcasting vein while you have the chance, Jeff Bond?
I don't know if I should. I mean, I think that I will be entering the podcast world a bit more fully in the coming weeks. And it's been a huge pleasure to be appearing on your podcast, and hopefully I will be able to return the favor in short order somehow. We'll see.
Excellent. Hint, hint, hint. Watch this space. Things may or may not actually be named at this point. Point is, look for Jeff on iTunes. Where you find podcasts, there might be something to pay attention to here in the semi-near to near future. All right, Jeff, thank you so much, and we will see everybody else next week with episode 13. Bye!
Thank you.
The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can also find me at Jet Juergens and Sonia at The Sonia Show.
And you can read all about my random adventures at my blog, thesoniashow.com, and track the slow, creeping process of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjuergens.com.
Yeah, you know what? Go right over there right now and see how much is going on jetjuergens.com. Anyway, it'll be fun. It'll be like a trip back to 2016. Anyway, you can find out more about the Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com, and while you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Please, for the love of God, for some reason, Apple Podcasts holds our destiny in their hands, so go over there and give us a rating, please. Sorry.
We would do it for you. We have a handy link on our website. It'll whisk you right over there so you can gush your love all over us.
This is disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Why did you write it like
I think
this, Sonia?
you
I
wrote it
didn't
like
write
that.
it like this. I don't like this.
We would gush love all over you and your podcast.
Yeah, we would do that. Anyway, point
Gushing.
is, I think we might be re-recording this here in a moment.
Gushing.
Jesus. What kind of podcast are you turning this into?
One that people will listen to.
This has been a presentation of Rocket Spots Media.